Most kicks are muddy, weak, or just plain boring. And you really can't have a weak kick in your track. It's just going to ruin it completely. I've struggled with this problem for over 15 years of producing, and I've come up with a method that gets good results every time. We're going to get kick sounds like this. The truth is, you only need to understand and master 3 things to make professional kick drums: the waveform, the pitch envelope, and the amplitude. It's not rocket science. It's much simpler than what a lot of people think. Look, you could use samples, but when you use samples, you don't learn anything about synthesis. You also don't learn anything about the mixing and mastering process, because generally those kicks are already processed and they're ready to just go straight into a track without any modification. So I'm going to teach you how to synthesize kicks from the ground up. This is a more holistic approach, and it's going to help you because when you understand synthesis, the idea in your head, you're able to translate it out into the door much more easily. We've got a kick drum open in front of us here, and we're going to cut it up to listen to its distinct parts. I'll make a slice here and another slice here, and we're left with 3 sections. The first section is the click of the kick, or the attack, or the transient. This next section is the punch or the body of the kick, and the final section here is the tail of the kick, where the sub or low frequencies are. We can turn these different parts off and listen to them in isolation. So I'll listen to just the click of the kick. And you'll hear that that's mostly high frequency content. The body of the kick. This is generally content from, say, 1000 hertz down to about 200 or 100 hertz. And then the tail is going to be 100 hertz and below. And this is going to carry the sub frequencies of the kick. And if you're not listening on speakers that can reproduce low frequencies, you may not hear it. If you're enjoying this video, then check this out. I've just dropped a 50 kick preset pack called Impact. It's available now on my website. Or if you want Impact and all of my other sample packs, plus private Discord server access, then you can become a Patreon supporter. Links are in the description. I'll see you there. Kick drums and electronic dance music are made with sine waves. We pitch the sine wave from high frequency to low frequency over time to give it the character, and then we shape it with a volume envelope. And you can achieve this with any synthesizer that has oscillator, pitch envelope, and a volume envelope. We're going to use Kick 3. This is a dedicated kick plugin, and it gives us more granular control over the kick. Down the bottom here, we can see that there are various layers. We're on the sub layer, and that sub layer is playing a sine wave. And if we click the pitch envelope here, we can see the envelope's journey over time, starting at 8 kilohertz and ending at 43 hertz. We can click and interact with this and move it around to change the sweep of the pitch envelope. You can see down here the length of the duration of that time as well, which is 500 milliseconds. So if we want to make longer or shorter kick, we can change it there. And here we've got the amplitude envelope, which lets us shape the volume of the kick over time. When teaching people how to get a professional mix, we always suggest using a reference track. So when teaching people how to get a professional kick drum, I'm going to suggest you use a reference sample. In this case, I've got a kick drum here that I'm going to use. I'm going to load it into Kick 3, and I'm going to show you how we can dissect it, understand it, and then improve upon it. This is what my reference kick sounds like. I'm going to load that into Kick 3. So open Kick 3, click Import, drag and drop the sample in. Under the import algorithm, I can select Accurate, and I'm going to click Analyze and Import. So it's analyzed the kick drum, and it's created 2 layers. You can see there's a green waveform and a blue waveform, blue being the sub and green being the click. You can also see that it's dropped in the sample but muted it just as it was in the door. It's super nice because now we can actually just listen to the different parts of the kick in isolation. So we can hear the click by itself, and then we could jump over and we could just listen to the body by itself. But even better than that, we can actually see the amplitude and the pitch envelope on the body of the kick, and we can see what they're doing to achieve that sound. So that's super useful. So we can see that the pitch is more or less just a seamless pitch from high to low. It's hard to see with all these things, but it's quite a sharp dip right at the beginning, and they start at around sort of 4 kilohertz. So they're not starting up super high. And they're not even using the beginning of the sine wave to make the click of the kick. They're muting it, and they're just letting the click play without need for the sine wave to be playing in that point in time. And so this gives us a good idea of the shape of this particular style of kick and how we can make it ourselves. And so this is good. We'll keep this kick drum in the DAW as a reference, but now we'll make our own kick drum from scratch, and we'll try and get something that's in the ballpark. I've initialized kick 3, so I've just got a single layer. That layer is playing a sine wave, and we can start from scratch. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to set the length of the kick. And generally speaking, you're dealing with an 1/8 note time for a kick length, let's say. So if we're at 140 BPM, we're around 214 milliseconds. I'm going to make it just a little bit longer than that. I'm going to say 250, and I can set the length, and now we're just dealing with that amount of time. I'm currently looking at the amplitude envelope, so I'm just going to pull the volume out a little bit so we're not cutting the volume off quite so soon, and we let the kick play out. And now we'll jump to the pitch envelope, and this is where we're really going to shape the kick. And I'm going to give you some kind of rough guidelines or rules of thumb that you can follow just to get a sound that kind of works in a position where then you can make small modifications to tune the way it sounds. So the way I achieve that is, first of all, we're able to tune the kick drum to be in a particular key. And so if we're writing a track and we're in the key of G, we can tune the kick to that. So first of all, I'll change the position of this final node, and I'll put that at 49 hertz. And then we could also create another node that occurs somewhere along the sort of tail of the kick drum, where we're going to hit 49 hertz. And we'll say that we'll hit 49 hertz sort of around here. And so from this node to that node, it's going to be fixed at 49 hertz. Then we can zoom in on the click. So if we click this, we can then select an area and we can zoom in on it. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, and we'll start at around 3 point whatever. And we'll draw another node out, and I've noticed on a lot of kick drums that they sort of travel flat for a little bit and then they start to drop, right? And so that's the kind of a little bit of an understanding that I've developed after looking at other kick drums and sort of how they are achieving a sound. We may or may not need that. We may or may not like that. But let's just have a listen to what it sounds like with just these few changes made. Right? And so it's quite a deep subby kick at this point, or at least it doesn't have a lot of like punch. And I'm going to delete that node. And now all of a sudden we've already immediately got a bit more of like a punchy kick. And we can sort of pull this up and down to adjust the tonality. We could also raise that a bit higher. Right, and you see these small little changes that we make do have quite a big impact on the sound. And if I zoom in here again, and just show you like some little interesting tricks, you can just like have this straight line, for example, draw another node, and then just start pulling that up, and it changes the cycle positions. And it will change, you know, the tonality of the sound. So let's just say that this is a fine ballpark. I don't want to get too into the weeds of making sure that it's absolutely perfect, because this process does take a lot of iteration, a lot of time to really nail it down to a really good sound. And you'll be spending quite a lot of time. And I suggest that you do something, then walk away for 20 minutes, come back, listen to it, make some changes, and keep doing this iterative process so that you're resetting your ear and you're constantly hearing it fresh. It'll help you make better kicks. And so I'm just going to say, yeah, that's good. We'll go to the amp envelope and we'll bring that all the way down at the start, and then we'll draw another node and we'll bring that all the way up. And I was noticing that there the other kick drums that we studied, that I've studied in preparation for this video, we're all kind of getting back to full volume by around sort of 120 hertz, right? So we can pull that forward. As we pull it forward, we'll notice it gets a bit knockier, right? And we actually might be wanting to reduce the amount of knockiness in the kick drum. And then we could also just say that we could start pulling it down there at the end. And you know, a shape like this is pretty acceptable. It's in this sort of ballpark. So we'll move on to the click. And here we've got a whole lot of preset sounds that have been loaded into kick 3, sorry. And under snares, these actually sound like white noise to me. And I might layer a bit of white noise, right? Now that's clearly too long. So we'll just go ahead and we'll draw in an amp envelope. Cool, and we could high pass it and just get the high frequencies if we wanted. And we may do that actually, because I'm going to add like another knock kind of sound to it. And so we'll add another layer as well. We'll add another click. And here we'll maybe try this one. Yeah, this one. That's not too bad, right? So we've got 3 layers. I don't really need to do anything to this layer. I could turn it down in volume here by adjusting this. It's a bit of a pain that it doesn't actually show on the waveform as we do that. If we want to see it reflected on the waveform, we can use the amplitude envelope and we can turn it down that way, right? So I'll just leave it sort of full volume. Like I said, I'm not going to really fine tune this kick anyway. But that is the building blocks of making a kick drum. And so we could add effects to it and we could EQ it, and we'll talk about that next. With EQ, we can obviously just come over to the EQ here and we can duck out frequencies that we don't like. So if we're hearing something in the 400 hertz range that we don't think sounds good, we can just pull it out using the EQ, right? And there's no problem with doing that. But here's another way that you can think about the sound. When you're dealing with your sub oscillator in particular, this doesn't necessarily apply to the other parts of the kick, but with the sub, because it's a sine wave being pitched from high frequency to low frequency, it's only ever one frequency being played at a time, right? It's just rapidly moving through. And so we can go to the amp envelope and we can find those problem frequencies, say around 400 hertz, and just make sure that we turn them down. And when they're turned down, we don't hear them. So it's like we've EQ'd them out. And so that's an interesting way that you can think about EQ with kick drums. And like I said, that doesn't apply with like a white noise signal, because white noise has all frequencies like playing at the same time, more or less, right? So you can't just turn it down at a single point because it's just going to turn it all down. But with a pure wave like sub, you can do that. So then compressors. Okay, so what are you really trying to achieve when you compress your kick? Now I'm talking about just directly compressing the kick. I'm not talking about like grouping the kick and bass and then compressing that. I'm just talking about a compressor on the channel. So you're probably trying to achieve one of 3 things. You're either trying to exaggerate the click and in turn take the focus off the body and the sub, or you're trying to attenuate the click and put more focus on the body or sub of the kick, right? So you're just shifting the focus, or maybe you're trying to color the sound. Now, if you're just trying to color the sound, then just use a saturator, right? Or use some kind of distortion to do that. But if you're trying to exaggerate the click of the kick, then you can just use the volume of the kick drum to do that, because all the compressor is going to do is it's going to change the volume of the kick at certain points through the kick's journey. And so if I wanted to exaggerate the click, I could just turn the body down. And now all of a sudden the click is more prominent because it's louder than the body of the kick. Mission accomplished. Same could be said if I wanted to do it in reverse. I want the click to be quieter, well then just turn the click down. and we've achieved the same thing. Now, that's not to say that you can't use a compressor on something, but if you got really into the weeds and you were really precise about what you were drawing in with the volume envelope, you can achieve the same effect as what the compressor is going to be doing. Now, the final part, distortion. Distortion and saturation are more or less the same thing. So all saturation is distortion, but not all distortion is saturation. Okay? So it all falls under the distortion umbrella. And what it does, whether you're saturating or whether you're distorting, is you're changing the waveform. You're manipulating the waveform. And so we're still dealing with our basic building blocks of waveform, pitch, and amplitude, but you're changing it from a sine wave to something else. So if I give you an example of this, I come to the sub, and I can click on this distortion button here, right? So I can apply distortion to the sub frequencies that we're generating here, or the sine wave that we're generating. I'll just put this all the way up to 100%, and then I'll turn this to 10, right? And I'll start turning this up, and you'll notice that it's changing the shape of the waveform. And how does that sound? Right, we're starting to get a lot of distortion with the changing of that shape. And it's actually changing it to more or less a square wave, okay? And so we could then say, all right, we'll give it a bit of drive. This is a different shape of manipulation of the waveform. But again, changing the way the kick sounds. And so what I wanted to share here was, why would you apply distortion to a kick drum? Well, there are styles of kicks that are made with distortion, such as hardstyle kicks, French chord kicks, some techno kicks, some drum and bass kicks, right? They apply distortion to give that dirtier, grittier sound. That's how you achieve it. But what you're effectively doing is you're just changing the waveform. I hope you've learned a lot from this video. Thanks very much for watching. And I want to say a huge thanks to my Patreon supporters as well. If you want to jump over onto Patreon and join the community, go ahead and do that. And I'll see you again in another video very soon. Cheers.